Hey guys, thanks for tuning back into Pixel Rich Games, where we strive and make it super hard, super fun. In this episode of Elden Ring, I'm sharing another build that I really enjoy playing. This is a caster build that looks really sick. Plus, it's an int faith build, so what's not to love? This time around, instead of an Ash of War, we're building around an armament, and I'm talking about the Golden Order seal. This works just like any other finger seal in the game, but what sets this apart is its A scaling on both int and faith, starting at +9. Then it also boosts Golden Order incantations for a solid 10%. So before we go into more details, my shameless self-ad. Give your boy some support by subscribing to the channel and liking this video to get YouTube's algorithm to promote the channel. Going back, this seal buffs up Golden Order incantations. And what are those? Well, there are 9, but we're not gonna go through all of them. I call this video the Lord of the Elden Rings for a reason. There are 3 spells that I run on this. Discus of Light that fires 1 ring of light. Then my go-to spell, Triple Rings of Light. And as the name states, it fires 3 rings instead of 1. And then last but not the least, RADAGON'S Rings of Light that kinda reminds me of Neo in Matrix Reloaded in the scene that he was fighting a big bunch of Agent Smiths. Discus of Light is more than enough to deal with normal monsters, but considering that Triple Rings of Light is relatively a low casting cost spell, Discus of Light becomes more situational once we get triple rings with enough points into mind. RADAGON'S Rings is really situational for me. 99% of the time I run with 3 rings, but a good example is this bad dude right here. Using 3 rings on this guy puts me in a more dicey situation. My range is its sweet spot. We'll practically be doing nothing but dodging its attacks, but switching to RADAGON'S Rings, we'll be able to fight at a closer distance where we defend less and attack more. RADAGON'S Rings is chargeable, but due to its low range and long casting time, I prefer to not charge at all. I almost forgot to mention this big thing about the Discus and 3 rings. The rings don't go through walls or pillars. Structures block the rings and cause them to boomerang back from a shorter distance. This becomes a bigger thing when fighting in close quarters, and this is another situation when the single ring becomes the better option. Now that we're done with the spells that we pick from, let's talk about how to make them even stronger with our talismans. Okay, so let's start with a talisman that helps us with our cast speed issue, Radagon Icon. I know there's mixed opinion on how useful this item is, but I also know that wearing this talisman is like sinking 30 points in a dex just to get the same cast speed, so I choose to equip this that invests those stat points in. Maybe eventually, down the unforeseeable future, I don't know. Next up is the Phlox Canvas Talisman that greatly raises the potency of incantations by 8%. Note that this only affects damage incantations. Buffs and heals don't get the benefits. Then we have its little brother, Faithful's Canvas Talisman that raises potency by 4%. And before you ask, yes, they do stack. That's why I'm running them both. Last but not the least is the Sacred Scorpion Charm that boosts holy damage by 12%, but increases physical damage taken by 10. These 4 are my highly recommended talismans. While you're working towards getting them, there are 2 talismans that can help along the way. First is a personal favorite for early game, the Green Turtle Talisman that increases stamina recovery by 15%. Then we have the Gold Scarab that helps us get 20% more runes from defeating enemies. Next up, let's talk about armor. This part for this build is the most interesting to me, and you'll see why in a bit. For headgear, we go with the Radiant Gold Mask. This mask is made specifically for this build. It boosts Golden Order incantations by another 10%. As for the rest of the gear, I chose to go commando. I know, the clips you're seeing in the background have me wearing something. These were taken early on. The reason that I took them off is simply equip load. With them on, I'm sitting at medium load, and if I stick with just the headgear, that brings me down to light where I become more nimble. This may sound crazy, but I mean, it's not like the light gear can mitigate much. I just find this better chance at avoiding damage over taking a tiny weeny bit less of damage. Should you choose to stick with something, I recommend going with Commoner's Garb that adds 1 faith. Other than that, you're free to go as heavy or light as you prefer. Now let's go to our flask setup. I'd say the best in slot here is the Holy Shrouding Crack tier that boosts holy attacks by 20% for 3 minutes. This is good for this build in any stage or situation in the game. The following 4 are more of where you are in the build, like what you need the most. As we already know, this build is in faith, and while we're working our way to 80 for both, we can run the Intelligence Not Crystal tier that gives us plus 10 intelligence for 3 minutes. Or if faith is what you're lacking, we can do the Faith Not Crystal tier that works pretty much the same way, but instead of increasing int, it gives faith. Let's say you already have 80 for both int and faith, so these two aren't as effective anymore. I have 2 more options for you. First is the Greenburst Crystal tier that increases our stamina recovery by 15 per second for 3 minutes. So faster stamina recovery. Or you can go with the Greenspill Crystal tier that increases maximum stamina by 15% for 3 minutes. I personally went with Greenburst with Holy Shrouding. For stats, we already know that our main stats for this build are Intelligence and Faith. Aim for 80 cap for both for maximum clap-in experience. This build has more than enough faith to cast 2 of my favorite buffs in the game. At 15 faith, we can start using Flame Grant Me Strength, and then at 25, Golden Vow comes into play. For survivability, work your way to at least 40 vigor. Once you have more, aim for 50. But whatever you do, don't go over 60 because that's just a waste. Next, we need to do a balancing act for mind and endurance. In my build, I find 25 mind and 20 endurance to be really good already. So, what do you think of the Lord of the Elden Rings? It's a pretty solid and fun build. Not as strong as Bleed, but still very good and plays very differently that makes it entertaining. Alright, that's it for me in this episode. I hope you find this guide useful. Thanks again for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video to see more content on Elden Ring. Hit that bell to get notified whenever I have a new vid out. See you on the next one. Stay healthy, keep safe, and God bless us all.